The Wilderness Within You, Day 3, Friday of Week 1. There are several Bible readings today. First from Psalm 22, verse 24, from the Message. He has never let you down, never looked the other way when you were being kicked around. He has never wandered off to do his own thing. He's been right there, listening. Psalm 9, verses 18 to 19 from the RSV. For the needy shall not always be forgotten, and the hope of the poor shall not perish forever. Arise, O Lord, let not man prevail. From Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, the NRSV. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child, and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel. And from Hebrews 13, verses 1 to 6, NRSV. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison as though you were in prison with them, those who are being tortured as though you yourselves were being tortured. Let marriage be held in honour by all, and let the marriage bed be kept undefiled, for God will judge fornicators and adulterers. Keep your lives free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? I don't know when I will have this chance again to ask the questions that always bugged me, and not only hear his answers, but watch his response. Read the look on his face. So there we are on this, the third day of Lent. I decide to go for broke and ask him what everyone seems to want to know. Why do children die? Why do people suffer? Why does God just look on and let rich and powerful people oppress the poor? Why does God watch while children are abused and trafficked for sex? Why doesn't he do something about it? And Jesus, having listened carefully to these questions, looks up at me. His eyes can see right into my soul, and this seems to go on for a very long time. And he asks me, are those your questions or someone else's? It occurs to me that not only is there very little point trying to mess Jesus around with half-truths and pretense, but it would actually be extremely hard to do. No. I think I want to amend extremely hard to impossible, especially when he's looking at you. Well, I say, those are the questions that I've heard people asking time and time again. So I thought I'd take the chance to find out what you really think. They are like the trump cards people use in the game of believing. Ah, see, there is no God. and I thought you might be able to answer them. He nods. Yes, he says, but they are not your own questions. No, I admit, not really. When I hear them, what I think is that God might as well ask us those things. I think he could reasonably say, I gave you wealth, and instead of using it fairly, you were greedy with it and wasted it. What do you think you were doing? Or, I entrusted into your care the most precious and beautiful gift of all, a little child, and you starved and beat her, neglected and abused her, raped and sold her. You cannot begin to imagine the wrath that will descend upon you personally and as a society because of this. Where there is inequality and oppression, wars come. In their wake is poverty and destruction. Where there is promiscuity, death and disease follow. I know it isn't politically correct to say so, but hey. Where people are selfish and neglect to care for the weaker members of their families, poverty, need, want, and sickness follow. Why blame God? And until people give up booze and fags and overeating, how can they possibly accuse God of not looking after them properly? It's like calling suicide murder. And I think that if you took away from the face of the earth every man-made problem, leaving only the natural disasters like tsunamis and cyclones and earthquakes and plagues, and if we set our energies and resources to work addressing and responding to those, why, the earth would be a paradise. And that was how God meant for it to be. A paradise with a few challenges, which he gave us the resources to fix. But we seem hell-bent on turning paradise to desert and wilderness and holding God responsible for not stopping us. That's what I think. Jesus' eyebrows twitch just a little and a small grin tugs at the corners of his mouth. I'm sorry, I say. I suppose that was a bit of a rant. Anyway, that is what I think. What about you? Well, says Jesus carefully, cause and effect don't always show up in the same place. This person does a bad thing, and as a result that person suffers, but the first person doesn't care. And there are always reasons. There's a reason for everything, but that's not really the same as a solution. So long as people are free to act, the consequences will show up in everyone's life. And to take away freedom is oppression, which of itself causes suffering, as any slave can tell you. So what I did, call it what the Father did if you like, it comes to the same thing, is to share it. I wasn't ignoring it. That was my response. To go to the place where poverty and sorrow, sickness and pain, fear and grief, oppression and torture are, and do what I could. And because sometimes there were no options available for healing or changing the status quo, what happened to other people, I allowed to be done to me. The thing is, an answer is not always framed in words. When it's really important, You don't send a message explaining. You go yourself.